Yeah, sure. Maybe Elon Musk will force us to put little chips in our brains, and sure, maybe one day we'll be forced to consume all media through Apple Vision Pros while stuck inside a hyperbaric chamber. Listen, I don't know what the future holds, but one thing's for certain. Somewhere on this floating rock we call Earth, there's always going to be a guy named Sheldon who's defying all odds with his wonder schlong. This is When Harry Met Sally.
Wow, that was a weird one. Hey, credit to you. I didn't expect that one at all. I know for listeners who haven't listened to our most recent episodes, you've been trying to spice it up,
Yeah.
your intros and your synopsis.
Right before recording, I was like, this might be bad.
As soon as you said Elon Musk, I was like, whoa, this is going a direction.
Yeah, I saw your reaction from my peripheral, which I try to avoid because I want to just read it and focus, but I saw you just literally start squirming. You were like, oh no, oh no, where are we going?
I gave almost like a, John Krasinski look at the camera for a second.
Dude, so fucking excited to watch this movie. And so
to talk about this movie,
talk about this
We already
movie.
watched it, dude.
But honestly, it's been a shitty month, man.
Yeah.
Not gonna sugarcoat it at all. It's been a pretty bad month overall for everyone, not just me.
Mm-hmm.
And really looking forward to a movie that was just cozy comfort food.
Yeah. This is a very cozy movie. That's a good way to describe it.
Yeah. And, as a guy in his late 20s that's single, this movie just becomes more and more resonant every day.
What part of it becomes resonant?
Well,
I mean, we can get more in depth.
We're going to talk about it.
Yeah.
First, let me introduce the show. Welcome to Movies That Changed Us. I'm Altaf.
And I'm Chris.
And if you're listening to us on Spotify, know that you can also watch us on YouTube at Movies That Changed Us.
And we also have a Patreon. If anyone likes the show and wants to support, you can go to patreon.com/movies that changed us, where you can get weekly commentary tracks where Altaf and I talk over movies and that we like. And also, fun fact, we do have an Instagram that we've been punching up a little bit too, if anyone wants to stay in the loop on what we're up to and see what we're doing.
Chris posted his recent DVD haul.
Yeah. We're just looking to do, more little goodies if anyone wants to stay in the conversation. Our handle is Movies That Changed Us. You can just go to Instagram and look that up and you can find us.
Hell yeah. Chris, I'm going to ask you the question that I ask you on every episode of this podcast. Have you ever faked an orgasm?
Have I ever faked? Yeah, and I get away with it a lot.
If this is your first episode of our podcast, no, I ask him this every episode.
Every day he's like, have you faked it yet, Chris? Come on, you got to try it.
No, how did When Harry Met Sally change you?
So I think the main thing this movie did for me is it solidified a belief that I do hold very near and dear as someone that's in, a long-term relationship, and my last relationship was also long-term, that I do believe that friendship is the most important foundation to a meaningful relationship. And so it's nice to see a movie that kind of really, reinforces that for me.
That's what the whole movie's about.
Yeah. Thematically, it's pretty much, speaking my language. And I'm sure a lot of people's.
You know what other movie also does that?
Huh.
Kuch Kuch Hota Hai.
Yeah.
That movie's, Shah Rukh Khan lays it out in that classroom when the teacher's like, what is love? And Shah Rukh Khan's just like, you can't have love without friendship, you know?
Well, exactly. I mean, the George Clooney phrase, you can make a bad movie with a good script, but you can't make a good movie with a bad script.
Yes.
I think the same way with romance and friendship. Like, you can have a bad romance off of a good friendship, but you can't have a good romance off of a bad friendship.
Yeah. No,
I do believe that,
It's true. I think to answer your question from a minute ago of what resonates more and more with me, the way this movie changed me is just that it kind of makes me feel validated about the fact that when it comes to dating, no one really knows anything.
Sure.
It's all a shot in the dark. It's a crapshoot. We have no idea. We're just all trying our best. And I feel like that's kind of the aspect of this movie, watching it last night for this podcast, that I really resonated with, is that from the opening of the movie, Harry's character has that, and I wrote down in our notes, has this cocky early 20s energy that we all have.
Oh, yeah. Well, especially for men, in my opinion.
All of us. Yeah, all men definitely have that.
Yeah.
And he just feels like this is how men and women work. You don't understand. And Sally's like, what the hell are you talking about? And Sally has some of that cocky energy, but she's expressing it differently. And then throughout the movie, you see Harry just Okay, now he's married. So, okay, maybe his beliefs have changed. Oh, shit, he's divorced. Now he's depressed. Oh, fuck. Now he doesn't know what to do when he has a female friend. And it's like, it shows that you can be extremely confident, but life won't follow that.
Oh, yeah. Like time and experience will kind of give him new perspectives.
Yeah.
Essentially.
It's also like, screenplay wise, this movie is so sharply written. No shit. It is one of the best screenplays out there, just for the fact that, like, the opening of the movie from the title asks a certain question. And then at the end of the movie, it answers that question. And then every scene is about that question.
Yeah.
This movie makes it look easy to write a movie like this, but Hollywood has been trying to replicate this magic for decades now.
Yeah, I think the closest thing, and the experience is completely different than When Harry Met Sally, but the closest I think to this type of movie is the Before trilogy, a little bit. Very different. They're completely different movies and have different worldviews and experience.
Which we're gonna do.
Exactly, which we're doing Before Sunrise next week. So if anyone wants, likes that movie,
subscribe.
Tune in. Yeah, tune in. But yeah, because I consider the Before trilogy almost like When Harry Met Sally being stretched into 3 movies. Because they all take place in different times or generational period movies.
And yeah, when the Before trilogy wouldn't happen if it wasn't for this.
Yeah.
I mean, really think about it. There were like It Happened One Night, the classic rom-com that a lot of people look at and are like, well, this defined the entire genre. And that's true. But When Harry Met Sally, I do think invented the modern rom-com that unfortunately doesn't get made as much anymore, at least from a studio perspective of being put out in theaters. It's something we fight for now. But for years after this movie, it kind of invented the whole formula.
Yeah.
Everything from like the friend character in a rom-com, and everything from like, oh, they had this falling out, so the leading up to the final act, there's going to be a montage of them alone. Like all of these like tropes that we see in rom-coms done poorly or badly was started from this movie.
Yeah.
And that being said, sometimes when you watch a movie like this that started the trends, because there's been so many movies since then, it's hard to watch the original one and not feel like it's cliched. But when I watch When Harry Met Sally, it still feels fresh. It still feels like it's of its own piece, and no movie does it better than this.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's so timeless, and the story's so simple. I mean, there are a couple things that feel very 80s and 90s where I watch it and I'm like, like the voicemails towards the end of the movie that he's leaving here. I was like, oh, that would be adjusted if it was made now, or certain things.
Yeah.
There's some, but overall the essence of the movie is so timeless. It has just the most basic structure of 2 individuals interacting, sharing their worldviews, and connecting deeper and deeper as time goes on. That's something anyone can relate to. That's no matter what generation you're from.
I kind of wrote in my notes, I was like, why is this movie so evergreen? And one of the big reasons is that just the idea of finding love and trying to figure that out, no matter like whether dating apps come into the picture, no matter if the dynamics have changed or the way we talk to each other has changed, the idea of like, we don't know who our person is and we're trying so hard to find a connection, that inner struggle is always going to be there.
Yeah.
And this movie taps into that. So that's why this movie is going to be forever. Like, it's always going to exist and it's always going to resonate. And sure, there's tiny details of like the voicemails and stuff like you were talking about that might not be the same. But other than that, it's like, man, I'm still going to places with my friends talking about my dating life. Like, it's still a thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
We're still struggling out here.
Well, it's like the Ron Swanson quote where he says like, it's always a roll of the dice.
Yeah, I know. I think it's a quote that, to encourage me, you've said a lot. And it's true. I try to remind myself all the time, and I think this movie really shows that. And I think the difference that this movie has with Before Sunrise is that this movie is also just a pure comedy. Like, every scene ends with like a punchline.
That's the thing, man. It's so much more than just dialogue that's funny, which the dialogue is really funny. But then there's so many good blocking moments too. I mean, the most obvious one you and I refer to all the time is the football scene
Oh my god, my favorite
Yeah.
scene in the movie. I know most people would talk about the Cat's Deli thing.
Well,
when it
of
comes
course,
to-
yeah, the deli scene too. But even like the opening when they're first driving together, how he's like spitting out the grape seeds while they're talking and they're timed so perfectly.
Or that first joke when he spits out the grape seed, but it attaches itself on the window
When it
and then he
hits the
rolls
window.
it down. Yeah, yeah, simple stuff like that is
There's so much characterization.
yeah, man, and it's that marriage between great director and great writer. So Rob Reiner directs this movie, and it's funny that it's Rob Reiner because the last episode we did was Stand By Me.
Yeah, I know.
was-
I realized that when you're watching, and I also like the little touch. Did this movie come out after Misery? I'm assuming.
Oh, I think so.
Because do you remember when
He's
Billy
reading
Crystal was
Misery.
reading Misery? Yeah, and I wonder if that was like a little nod to himself.
Had to be. Great sweaters in this movie, by the way. I remember when he's like reading it and he's wearing this like white sweater. I'm
Well,
like,
speaking of like things that are clearly 80s and 90s, some of their outfits are so period specific.
I know.
In the best way possible. I mean this in a loving way.
well, then there's like homages, right? Like this is obviously this movie's is in conversation with movies like Annie Hall. And when you see Meg Ryan in that certain outfit with that hat, suit, gloves, that's so Diane Keaton.
Yeah.
They're literally doing Diane Keaton.
Oh yeah, 100%. It's when you're talking about when they're outdoor walking in like the leaves and was it Central Park they were walking?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not a New York
Well,
guy
I
like
think
you.
it's Central Park. I mean, I'm not in New York either. I was born in New York, lived there for like 5 years, but then these people will like attack you. You're like, you're not really from there.
Well, you're saying you lived there from 0 to 5 years old.
yeah, to clarify.
So yeah, I mean, it would be kind of disingenuous to say I'm a New York guy.
Sometimes, like I remember I was talking, so I was out with friends, and there was this really cute girl I was talking to. And it's funny, I never talk about my dating life, but I'm like, we're doing this episode, why the fuck not?
No, we have to, right?
Yeah.
We've been talking about our mental health. We've been talking about all like we got
Let's
to
get into
open the floodgates of
Chris,
our love lives.
It's love month.
It's February, guys.
No, so I remember I was talking to this girl and it was going well. And I remember she just casually brought up that, oh yeah, no, because I'm in New York, blah, 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 blah. And I didn't have to do this. And I kick myself for doing this all the time. But I just mentioned, I was like, oh, I'm from New York too. And and she's like, oh, really? I was like, yeah, no, from Queens. And she's like, oh, God, I lived in Queens for like 10 years and then I moved. And she started talking about a different borough. And I didn't clarify that I left at 5, so I don't know anything about New York. So I just kind of just lied. And then she caught it. She was just like, wait, when did you move out? I was like, around like
no.
5 or 6. She was like, you didn't fucking live in New York. And she said those words. She's like, you didn't fucking live in New York. And I'm like, well, I guess not. No, I moved to Maine after that. And she was like, oh my God.
Yeah, immediately just
Her friend is next to her talking to my friend because it's me and this other guy, me and my friend, we went up to these two girls. And she's like, this guy's fucking saying he's from New York.
oh man, so they're like zeroing in on
And
you.
then they both zeroed in on me and I just started apologizing profusely. I was like, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
And we kept it like,
I feel like that's the most like New York person ever though, of like if you catch someone red-handed.
but I like fully understand. Like I understand because if I was a pure New Yorker and someone said that, I'd be kind of pissed off. But you are right. There is this like New England territorial vibe that is really weird. Like, anyways, yeah, I don't even know where this conversation
We started off by you were saying how they were walking around potentially Central Park and she was wearing the Diane Keaton outfit.
Yeah, and I was saying I don't know if that's Central Park. Anyways, this movie's in conversation with like a movie like Annie Hall.
Yeah, what do you think it is about those two movies that, because like, you know, obviously it's weird to bring up Annie Hall to some extent, but there is like a genre of rom-com that are so like, they make a point to be very matter of fact, if that makes any sense.
Well, it's dramatizing very everyday things that we all go through and putting it up on screen. I mean, Annie Hall was way more revolutionary with the way it broke the form.
Language of the movie.
Yeah, the way it was like break the fourth wall, those subtitle sequences, you know. And When Harry Met Sally is very simple in that sense. It doesn't do a lot of that, but it does have those like interstitials with these old couples. And so it does feel like it's in that world a little bit.
Well, and I also, can I jump in on that? If
Go
you don't
for
mind?
it, please.
That I also think the conversations they have in When Harry Met Sally are very like I said earlier, kind of matter of fact. Like they're very like, they make a point to break the expectations of typical rom-coms. They're like, oh no, men and women can't be friends. And they also talk about like high maintenance and low maintenance. They establish these like kind of ground rules for relationship that kind of change as the movie goes on.
Yeah, totally.
so-
And also I love those sequences where they're just talking about random bullshit.
Yeah.
Like when they're just walking down the street and he's just telling her about a dream he had. And he was just like, so yeah, again, same dream. I was having sex in front of these Olympic judges and they gave me these ratings, which is this is such a Billy Crystal joke. Like, and then she talks about how she had a dream where this like faceless man ripped her clothes off and that's the end of the dream.
And she's been having it since she was 12.
She's like, that's your sexual fantasy? He was like, well, it changes. It's like, what changes? Like the clothes I'm wearing. And then he just walks away. But those scenes, like, I feel like sometimes like lesser producers or writers would maybe cut those scenes out, right? Or filmmakers in general. But I feel like those scenes are important with the movie that's trying to answer that question of whether they can be friends, because that's what friends talk about.
Yeah, well, exactly. I think like, you know, if you want to get personal now, like for me, that's something that, you know, to a fault, I genuinely get value out of like the nothing moments with my girlfriend. You know what I'm saying? When it comes to like just the average sitting around the TV playing stupid games or watching, you know, random cartoons and stuff like that. Like I like that stuff more than the grand gestures of like, you know, oh, I got you flowers. And again, to an extent, that's to a fault. I need to punch myself up a little bit sometimes, be more spontaneous or be more, you know, I guess deliberate in trying to be romantic.
Yeah.
But I actually get real fulfillment and enjoyment out of like just random nothing conversation, being able to stand being around my partner and laughing.
And I think the best of Nora Ephron is when is her doing that. Like if you look at Sleepless in Seattle, You've Got Mail, and this movie, her like masterpiece trilogy. I would add Julie and Julia in there, but I know not everyone would. Eventually, we'll do that movie. That is one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah, fun fact for listeners, Altaf loves Julie and Julia. He like sat me down and had me watch it.
I've seen that movie like 6 times. I own the Blu-ray to it. We'll talk about it some other time.
He has a huge man crush on Stanley Tucci.
Oh my God. He's like a sexual magnet in that movie. Anyways,
I'm just trying to get this out of you a little. I'm like, no. Let's talk about Julie and Julia.
We'll save it for the podcast that we'll do. We'll do a 3-hour episode on it. It'll be fine. No. So what I was saying is that Nora Ephron's so good at this, which is like, she's amazing at getting two people just chatting about something, about minutiae of life in a very like Seinfeld-esque way, but it feels so natural and never boring. It doesn't feel like, it still feels like it's a movie.
It still feels written, if that makes any sense.
It's not like cinema verite where it's like weird and
mumblecore.
Yeah.
It's not, yeah, it doesn't feel like, I know what you're getting at. Like it has like a rhythm to it and it has punchlines and jokes and it has real characterization in the dialogue too.
Which, don't get me wrong, like I love the Before trilogy.
Yeah.
But the Before trilogy is like going for something different with its like dialogue.
Yeah.
It's going for something that's super grounded. This is like, let's do that, but let's add some jokes. This is a movie.
Like, let's add the fun in romance too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But that's where someone like and that's where people like Meg Ryan and Billy Crystal come in, which is these are two people that are just like effortlessly charming.
Their chemistry is so fucking good in this movie. I know that's not like the most interesting podcasty thing to say, but like I don't know how else to phrase it. Their chemistry is just like nothing. Their rhythm, the way it's so smooth.
So Blank Check, when they did their Nora Ephron series, which I will say, they're the reason I became obsessed with Nora Ephron. I always kind of wrote her movies off as the fluffy chick flicks, which I know is very shallow of me.
But that was your first impression of them?
And when I listened to Blank Check and they covered Nora Ephron as a blank check filmmaker, I remember being like, let me rewatch When Harry Met Sally. Let me watch Sleepless in Seattle. I'm like, oh my God, no, she's like a brilliant writer. Now, I will say, she has a lot of misses. She wrote like Michael. She has like a lot of movies that just straight up don't work.
You're talking about, wait, Michael, that's the John Travolta movie where he's an angel?
She wrote and directed that, yeah.
She directed that too? I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean, she directed Sleepless in Seattle. She directed like When Harry Met Sally was the movie that gave her a directing career.
Got it. Yeah, I'm much more rusty on my Nora Ephron lore. I know you're much more into her, you know, so you've shown me stuff and you've told me stuff, but I forget a lot. So
the reason I brought up Blank Check is that in their When Harry Met Sally episode, they talked about how like Billy Crystal and Meg Ryan are so good together in this movie that it's surprising that people remember Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan as the couple. Like, oh, they're the ultimate Hollywood like movie couple. Whereas, like, if you look at Billy Crystal and Meg Ryan, it's like, why wasn't Billy Crystal paired up with Meg Ryan more?
They're so watchable. Yeah,
and Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan are amazing together, but Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan have that vibe of just like, well, these are just two of the most beautiful people in Hollywood. Billy Crystal and Meg Ryan, there's that feeling, and this is no insult towards Billy Crystal. He's a handsome man, but there's that feeling of like, I'd see those two at a bar and I'd talk to my friend and be like, how did he get her?
Yeah,
I would say the line that I know is very shallow, but it's what I would say, which would be like, he's probably really fucking funny. Like, I would 100% go for that.
I think there is truth in that, though, and universally, though, that like, yeah, women are not as shallow as we think,
as men are. Yeah, no, 100%.
That, you know, like I've always said, like, it's all about the vibe check.
I mean, it's also like Roger Rabbit, where they ask Jessica Rabbit, it's like, why him? He's like, he makes me laugh.
He makes me laugh. Exactly. And I think, yeah, making, you know, your partner laugh, making your partner feel safe, like, you know, he or she can be themselves, you know, without being judged. There's a lot of things there that go beyond just how handsome they are. But going off what you said, Billy Crystal has the haircut of, I don't know what to call it, but it's like this very 90s, 80s haircut, like this, like Michael Keaton had it back in the day. Rob Schneider had it.
They're all struggling with their hairlines, man.
Is that all it is? I don't know what to call that haircut, because I know, like, you know, there's the undercut, there's the Caesar, there's the man bun, like, the comb over, and like, I don't know what that hair's called.
Nowadays, I feel like with receding hairlines, celebrities go to Turkey to get those hair plugs. That happens a lot, or they just go bald.
Sure.
But there was a time where they were like, maybe we could make this work.
Yeah, but you know what I'm talking about, though, right? Where it's like the receding hairline, the curly
100%.
hair.
That's why it's so jarring where in that college flashback, he's wearing a wig and you're like, what?
Yeah.
But also you know I kind of semi-insulted Billy Crystal for his looks. He does, like, when it gets, he rocks the shit out of that beard.
Oh, yeah.
Especially, I feel like in 2025, a beard just, like, is so much more common and men are growing beards way more often. I know the beard era was him being depressed in the movie, but he looks fucking amazing in a beard.
Yeah, he does. And also, like, you know, he does play it very well, though, you know, because obviously it'd be safe for a comedic actor to be like, I'm just going to be funny and then I'll be cute when it gets romantic. But he gets like very romantic. The way he looks at her when he ends up kissing her, he looks at her like very sexually. And it sounds weird to say, but you know what I'm getting at? Like he plays
also
it very
has
sincerely.
This fucking like big dick energy in the beginning of the movie where he's like in the diner and he's like, you're really attractive.
Yeah.
No, I'm just saying it's a fact.
Well, and
like he thinks he's such hot shit.
Well, that exactly. And they play it off later when they see each other again when
Carrie Fisher brilliantly says, like, there's a man staring at you from personal growth.
Yeah, well, even on the plane, I was talking about when they see each other briefly.
Oh God, yes. Every scene is good in this movie.
I know, right? It's all memorable. But I'm talking about the moment when she says, like, oh, you were coming on to me and you took it as like some character flaw that I wasn't interested in you. You know, and you know what I mean? His ego was like through the roof because he was a young, dumb 20-year-old.
And I remember he said something along, I was like, fair enough, I get it.
Yeah, he was like, is there a statute of limitations on apologies or whatever?
Yeah, and I remember when like they officially become friends, how he's just like, wow, a woman friend. I think you're the first attractive woman that I didn't want to sleep with. And doesn't she say like, good for you, Harry?
Or like, that's wonderful, or something like that.
Yeah, she says, that's wonderful, Harry.
Something along those lines.
So it's weird for me to ask you this because I know I've known you for 7 years. And most of the time I've known you, you haven't been single.
Yes. Well, yeah. Do you want to do a little table setting for listeners who don't know us? Yeah.
Do you want to? You do the table setting. It's your. Okay. I'm talking about your life.
Yeah. So I've been in a relationship for a while now. I'm not married or anything, but I live with my girlfriend, and we've been together for 6.5 years now.
Yeah.
And so long time.
And when I met you, you were single.
Yeah, for a solid year.
And you had just gone off of, like, when I met you, you had recently broke up with your past girlfriend and you were in a relationship with her for like 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So there was this like year block in the middle where you were single. That's when I met you. And I remember like I saw different aspects of you when you were single. And I was like watching this movie and trying to remember what you were like because I don't remember as much, you know?
I was probably about 22 years old at this point you're referring to when I was single.
Yeah. And it was just, I think like I remember seeing you like, you know, you used to just be like, okay, so what I like to do is I like to roll up my sleeves. I like to wear this watch. I like to.
I had like a formula down.
You had your moves, you know, this is what you used to do. This is what how you used to flirt. Were you ever a hopeless romantic? Were you the like not the exact Carrie Fisher energy where she's just like going out with married men, but did you have that energy of just like I just needed to work out, like I want this person, like because I don't see that energy from you that often, or maybe you keep it to yourself, but do you have that hopeless romantic part in you?
When you define hopeless romantic, do you mean like in terms of romantic gestures and like the classic, like getting gifts and flowers and shit like that, or
Like when you were single when I met you,
Mm-hmm.
were you just like, I just need to find love. I really want to find love. Or are you the type of person that like, it's because I know you as a very even keeled person. I see you as that, and I feel like that's how you are. You're very much someone that's just like, we'll take it day by day. We'll see how it comes. And I'm the guy that's just like, I just want to find someone,
Yeah,
I'm the Ted Mosby, I feel like sometimes.
sure.
And I think,
Like you idealize it a little bit.
yeah, do you have that part of you? How do you operate under that? When you were single, how did you like see love is what I'm asking.
Yeah, I
guess.
mean, so it was during that time, it was during my first major breakup, because I was
Yeah.
with someone for 5 years, and it was a pretty rough breakup too, Funny enough, that person and I are on good terms as far as I know, and we both grew up and it was okay.
Time is all it takes.
Yeah, exactly. But at the time, I was very anxious and depressed. And there's something about the movie too that I really related to on a small scale, when Billy Crystal was having like those little triggers that totally just took him off of his train of thought and his wavelength. I was dealing with the same thing. I think you remember that too. I warned you about that when we first became friends, because I was like a month after my breakup, I think, when we first met.
I got in the car with you the second day I was in LA. This is the day we met, and you were like, "You want to go to In-N-Out?" And I'm like, "Sure." We were roommates, and this is like literally I've known you for like an hour now. I hop in the car In-N-Out. I remember you make a bad U-turn, and you're like, "Sorry, yeah, just been a little anxious. Literally just went through a breakup." So I was like, "All right, this guy's going through something."
Yeah.
And then then I remember we were coming back from In-N-Out, some music was playing, and I remember you telling me, you're like, "Oh yeah, I also do like a really good Blink-182 impression."
That was all on the first day.
Yep.
I remember you mentioned this a lot. Like that was early on when we first.
No,
I didn't
that was-
realize it was like immediately I was like that.
Yeah, and
Oh fuck that
it
guy.
no, I think about it, I'm like, wow, he was going through a lot.
I was going through a lot, dude. So
Anyways,
so to go off of what you said, I wasn't. It's the classic, like when you first go through the breakup, you're kind of jaded during that time.
Yeah.
And it's very easy to get to that place.
yeah.
And it's very easy to like, let that cynicism. And I've already been a fairly cynical, kind of snarky person. I've gotten a lot better about it, but especially in my early 20s, I was pretty insufferable when it comes to that sort of thing,
Yeah.
Like kind of like Billy Crystal in the beginning of this movie, how he just had these kind of like,
Well, and also
know.
those trigger points when they're at the Sharper Image doing karaoke, his ex comes in and fucking Ira.
yeah.
And he has that breakdown when they're looking at the wagon wheel table. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
That
like
symptom is fucking my wife. Whoa.
one of the best lines in the movie in the midst of 100 great lines.
I know. So like, I guess no to a fault, like I said earlier in this podcast, that like I can be very like grounded, and I like to kind of be that person sometimes where
Yeah.
I value more like, okay, can I stand to be around you all day and kind of not do much?
Yeah, I like that aspect of you, because I feel like when I'm asking for like any sort of advice from you as a friend of just like, oh, I'm really looking for someone, I want someone, you're able to just be like, hey man, like this is real life, you know what I mean? It's not like the movies or something like that. And I feel like that is a good thing that you're like that.
Yeah, and I think the main thing I'm working on is still trying to be like, to wake myself up a little bit. 'Cause
To have some big swings in you.
some big swings in, exactly, because
Yeah.
I get very comfortable very quick, because like you said, I've been in long-term relationships, and I get very comfortable and used to, and I'm sure a lot of guys and women in long-term relationships that are listening can relate to that it's easy to kind of get used to your habits, that you're the way you're living.
Oh, sure.
And so, do I have anything in my teeth, by the way? I notice you're looking at my mouth a lot.
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I was like, do I have something going on? It's
No,
like,
I
you
didn't
pointed
mean
out.
to. I didn't mean to make you feel self-conscious.
No, it's okay. I just want to check.
Okay.
But so I think so to answer your question though, no, but I'd like to be better about it.
Yeah, I was thinking about you a lot, especially during that Sharper Image scene, and as just throughout the movie when he has those like certain moments. Harry has a certain moments where you're like, oh, he's still not over his past.
Yeah.
Because I just remember the first year of our relationship, you weren't like a reckless mess, but I do remember experiencing you, who I was becoming very close friends with, going through something that I was not a part of, which was like really weird, because I've known you for so long and we've shared so like many moments together. But there's this whole other life that you went through a month before I came here to
Yeah.
LA and met you that I wasn't a part of. And so I was experiencing the after effects of it. And it is, it's going to sound weird, but it is kind of like Sally running into Harry all these years and just being like, oh my God, you got divorced. What happened? She doesn't know anything about him. They're just like trying to figure it out
Yeah,
together.
trying to catch up.
And they just become friends. And it's kind of like a similar, we didn't end up fucking, but it's similar to what this story is, you know?
Not yet, dude.
But you know what's funny about me comparing our friendship to Harry and Sally is there's a lot of these scenes in of Harry and Sally joking around or doing bits is based off of Rob Reiner and Billy Crystal, this friendship, and apparently that phone call scene of them watching Casablanca together.
Yeah.
And discussing like who they would like. You wouldn't stay with Humphrey, you know what I mean? You wouldn't stay with Bogart. She's like, no, I don't want to be with a guy who runs a bar or whatever. Or no, she talks about it in the beginning of the movie, and then when they have that phone call, they're just like, did I really say that?
Yeah.
Which is, I love that of just like how much like when you're in your early 20s, you have this like these hot takes, and then as you get older, you're like, what the fuck was wrong with me? But anyways, Billy Crystal and Rob Reiner used to do that. They used to like see a movie and like call each other. It's like, hey, turn on this channel. This is coming on. They used to have conversations as that's going on.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's very wholesome.
Dude, just to jump in on that, the fucking framing of it's so perfect too. The way the beds line up with one another.
I know.
It's so good, dude. I'm sure it's all been said before,
no,
but like,
dude,
goddamn.
honestly though, I feel like it's not been. And maybe, but like, at least filmmaking wise, I feel like this movie is crafted so well.
Yeah. It's so cleanly edited and cleanly shot.
But because it looks so effortless, people might not like acknowledge that. Just like simple blocking stuff, right? In the opening act when they're walking out of the diner, and this is like the trip back home, that road trip. When they're walking out of the diner, they're having a fight, and at first Billy Crystal goes on one side of the car and they realize, oh, they're switching shifts on who's driving. And while they're having a conversation, they switch sides of the car. And that's just like a thing that you didn't need to do during that conversation, but it keeps it visual. Or like when they're talking about how their first date went and they're doing that while they're rolling out the rug in the apartment.
Yeah.
It's like, oh wait, it goes to the other side. It's like, oh, that's
the characters are always doing stuff, and it feels like they're actually living their lives and not just like setting up for a scene in a movie.
Yeah. They're doing stuff together as friends. Like she's coming over as a friend to help set up that rug, and it's like, oh, that's like a detail that you wouldn't see in all movies.
Yeah. Well, one thing that's super interesting, kind of going back to what you were talking about when it comes to like, did I really say that? Or did I, I had that hot take when I was younger, is I forget sometimes how important like timing is in relationships. Like, cause sometimes I think about me and my current girlfriend, right? When I was in my earlier 20s, and if she was in her earlier 20s, well, I was in my early 20s when I met her, but when I was like 18, 19, let's say, not a huge difference, but it was a difference. I do think like her and I might not have liked each other at that point.
Oh yeah,
there's
sure.
Sometimes that context is really weird. Sometimes it feels that way where there's always like this kind of,
you're not ready yet. Like it's like after that first road trip ends and they say goodbye to each other, and Sally's just like, that was interesting. And they shake hands. There's that shot of them both parting ways, and what that shot basically means is like, not yet. Like it's kind of just like they're both mentally not ready yet, and I think it's like, again, it goes back to that, like they have this like cocky early 20s energy about them that fails to make them vulnerable enough to meet each other.
Yeah.
They have to go through life a little bit.
Yeah, which I think it's, in a weird way, it's like you can either have a relationship where you grow with that person. Obviously, that's the ideal situation where you get together right at a time when you wanted to get with someone and you both grow together and are on the same wavelength at all times. That's like hard to do. Yeah. That's like half the battle of maintaining a relationship, in my opinion, is like time changes you and changes your partner too.
And the willingness to stick that out too.
To stick it out.
To just be like, okay, if I still love this person and I know that like this is a good relationship, then I'm willing to grow with them.
Exactly. Or oftentimes, doesn't work out too, because you do grow apart. Things, you both change and realize you want to live your life one way. The other person wants to live their life another way.
Yeah.
And so,
And it's just not going to happen.
yeah. Do you find yourself, out of curiosity, when it comes to their banter, do you find yourself relating to Harry or Sally more?
Oh,
It's a very, I know it's an open-ended question.
No. It's really interesting. I like flip back and forth on it a lot. So I've definitely had, and I'm just being very honest here. I'm not saying this is right or wrong. I'm just being extremely honest. I've definitely had that mindset of Harry of just like men and women can't be friends.
Yeah.
The sex part does get in the way. But you know when I used to say that? When I was like fucking 21 and 22. And I didn't have that many female friends. And I do have a lot of female friends now.
Yeah,
that are
yeah.
purely platonic.
Yeah.
And I like, and while I agree with Harry on some aspects of just like, if we're both single, that thought pops in your head for a second. I'm just like, huh. But like, it doesn't have to, like, your friendship won't be ruined. But there is truth to the fact that there is another like energy there, but it can change into friendship and it can be platonic. But there have been moments like that where I've been Harry. But I'm also very much like Sally, where, especially now as I'm getting older, where I'm just like, man, I just like, I don't, like, I just want to be like ready for it. I'm ready. My arms are open and I want to find someone that like means a lot to me,
Yeah.
Aside from that hopeless romantic stuff though, I'm also like Sally, where like I can be like, I kind of want the things the way I want them. And
Oh, I know.
the scene that I really relate to the most is when Billy Crystal's just like, you categorize all your videotapes? And I'm like, that's some shit I would do.
Yeah, I think like,
How about you?
yeah, I I probably just relate to Harry a lot more in a lot of ways too. I think also the way he,
His dry delivery of everything is very you-coded.
well, and listeners who don't know, Altaf and I have been having a back and forth about using the Zoomer slang of coded. And so I say it now naturally because it just caught on to me, and Altaf calls it out every time. So now he's using it facetiously to mess with me. But yeah, I think like the way Harry kind of seems like he has his worldview on lock, but it's really a defense mechanism, is something I very much relate to.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure you know that about me. I've always kind of tried to make it seem like, I try to have like some sort of logical understanding of the way the world works,
Yeah, but what I like about it is that, and I've seen this happen with you and your current girlfriend, you do have this like sense, like this dry delivery, this attack everything with a logical point of view. And sometimes you will be like jokingly steadfast on that. And I've seen it happen where your girlfriend will kind of point out the cracks. And that's kind of a beautiful thing in a relationship. And I just feel like that's what kind of Sally does for Harry.
Yeah.
That is their relationship. Harry goes on and on about this certain aspect of life that he's kind of annoyed by. And Sally being like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
I love how so many scenes are Sally just being like, huh?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Even like, even just to share my worldview when it comes to like, can men and women to be friends? I do also think it's perfectly possible for men and women to, two attractive single men and women to be friends. I do think though that like there needs to be something holding it together. I don't really know if it's like going to be a thing. Like,
What do you mean by that?
Like a lot of my platonic friends, that are women are like coworkers, if we didn't work together, I probably would never hang out with them.
Interesting. So there's I remember Harry in that conversation after they get off the plane. He's talking about, he's just like, well, then there's this thing of like, okay, if you're with someone, if you're in a relationship and you have you have a friend that's a woman that's platonic, you have to have like a reason of like, why are you going to her? Is there something there that you're not getting here?
Exactly.
And you say no, but let's be real, it's a yes. Like,
well, that's the thing too, though.
Which I don't fully agree with, but it is interesting,
Yeah, I find a pretty, honest or accurate in the beginning when she's like, no, I have plenty of male friends, and he's like, no, you don't. And he says, and I do think there's a lot of truth in that like a lot of dude friends, if they got a text from that woman who said, hey, can you come over and sleep with me? A lot of them are going to say yes. They're not going to say, oh, I like you only as a friend.
Yes.
And at least for me as a
Yes.
guy, I know it, right? Like,
Yeah.
even in a relationship, like if a dude is inserting himself into the equation and is trying to hang out with my girlfriend platonically, and she feels weird about it, but he's acting like he's only friends, I as a guy know, like, there's something there. There's something off about that.
But yeah, everyone operates differently. And so we are painting with broad strokes, like I said, but I do agree with you.
I do think it's important for both men and women, or whatever your sexual orientation is, to platonically befriend people of the opposite, or, you know, the gender that you're attracted to, in my opinion, because
Yeah.
like, I think it's important to hear another side of the story or what their experience is like. I'm sure you and I have gained wisdom. I'm sure I'm a better boyfriend in a lot of ways because I've been friends with a lot of women, you know, that I've worked with, and, you know, as coworkers.
Yeah, you don't have to just be friends with the people that you share a gender with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not that black and white. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
100%.
Otherwise, you're going to have such a tunnel visioned, like, me point of view of what I get out of relationships as
Yeah.
opposed to what you're giving to someone else.
Completely.
I got a question for you.
Please.
No, okay. Never mind. You sound weird and eager about it now.
I want it too much.
Please.
See, that's my problem with dating. I want it too much.
Yeah, you're not playing hard to get, dude. No, I was going to ask, like, have you had a platonic friendship with a woman that shaped your world? Because you said you used to be more cynical about that. What changed your mind? Have you had a particular friendship or experience or anything that kind of guided that as you got older?
Yeah, so I think before, when I was younger, I definitely just had male friends, and I was horrible at talking with women in general.
Mm-hmm.
So even if it was a friend thing, I just got nervous and got in my own way about it.
Yeah.
I just didn't have a lot of experience having platonic female friends when I was younger. And then, you know, I moved to LA. I didn't know anyone, and I just made friends with everyone. And I kind of just kind of grew up,
Mm-hmm.
and I learned. I was late bloomer about a lot of things, but I just kind of learned that, like, it's completely okay and possible. It's
Yeah.
like, this is not like it's not as black and white. And I think, like, it was just time, getting more mature about it, you know, life experience, you know.
Did you find that, like, it at all helped you when it comes to, like, any
Dating?
insecurities or anxieties around how you approach women or talk to women? Like,
Well,
was it more comfortable being friends with women? Did
I
it help?
guess it definitely gives me a lot of perspective about the other side of dating. You know what I mean? Because, like, I think when I was much younger, like in high school or college, I had a very one-sided perspective.
Just by having no experience, right? As it goes for young people.
Exactly.
You know, we have these views on things even though we have
And
nothing
then you talk to, like, other guys about it. Other guys have their own takes about it. And then once you go to that other side and you're talking, and then you just listen. You just hear their experiences, and you're just like, oh shit. So, like, yeah, I maybe shouldn't say dumb shit like that next time. Or, oh, I didn't know that's the angle they were coming from. Simple things of just, like, what are, like, women scared about when they're going on dates? Like, what are they insecure about? Well, also,
Interesting, yeah.
like, they're human beings. I look at them as this, like, I'm putting, like, you know, especially when I was younger, I'm like putting this woman on a pedestal and just be like, I like her so much. I don't know how to
I
talk
have
to
to
her.
impress her. She's a fucking queen kind of mindset.
When you become friends with a lot of,
Which we should impress the ones we love, but you know what I'm saying.
I know what you're saying, but
Yeah.
like when you like become friends platonically with other females and other, like, you just, like, learn that everyone's a human and everyone's trying their best.
Yeah.
And you have this level of, like, sympathy.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
You know what I mean? And I feel like that adds a lot of just, like, context when you're approaching someone romantically, because you know that the other person opposite of you is a human being, and you knew that already. I wasn't treating these people like they're aliens, but you get more context.
Yeah. I remember one thing I learned being friends, you know, platonically with women was how not special my dating moves or tactics were. Like hearing stories
dude.
of like, oh
God.
fuck, I've tried that before. Damn it. Now, like, you know, like I'm realizing how often women sniff out your intentions.
Oh my God. I learned very specifically how not subtle I am. So I'll think, like, when I'm approaching a woman, I'm just like, oh, well, yeah, I don't even know if she knew I was, like, into her.
And then like, oh, the whole table knows you're
It's
into
like,
her.
what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, I mean, in my time knowing you, you are a lot of things. Subtle is not one of them. Like, I love you to death.
I
You know what I
think
mean? And it's a strength at the same
But
time.
I think my biggest flaw is I think I am.
Yeah, or you've tried to be, And I think it's possible for you to be subtle, of course, but I'm just, there might be nothing wrong. I think you can go at it from an angle of like, you know what, like this, I'm into you, and I'm going to be honest about that sort of thing. Like it might as well. We're here now.
A scene in this movie that really stands out to me, and it's definitely a way I've flirted in the past, is doing a bit to flirt, is when they're in that museum and it's that paprikash scene where he puts on a voice. He's like, from now on, we will talk like this. It's paprikash. Say it like this. And she does it back. And then he like slips in, is like, do you want to go to the movies?
Yeah.
And maybe
the voice thing is such a thing when you say something kind of risky. I mean, they do it in Before Sunrise too. Remember when he asks, he's like, describe your first sexual experience.
Yeah. Trying to say something that's a little bit crossing the line, but like maybe passing it off as a joke.
Yeah, exactly.
But what I love is the way Sally responds, because it's the thing that we were talking about. It's just like, women know. And she immediately, her tone, she's like, oh no, I can't.
Yeah, I have a date, and she felt all kind of insecure telling him that she has a date.
Like Harry, like in his mind, maybe thought he could just slip it in, and it's like, no, this is actually more serious. But that scene also, you maybe already know this, that moment where like Sally starts breaking laughing and she like looks off to the side, she's looking at Rob Reiner, because Billy Crystal did that on the day as an improv.
Got it.
And he made her repeat, like, say paprika, say it like this. And she was like, oh no. And then she looks to the side. She was looking at Rob Reiner, like, what is he doing? Because that whole bit was just like a thing he came up with.
Interesting. Okay. I actually did not know that.
A lot of the scenes in this movie was just Billy Crystal punching up scenes and jokes and everything, because just he's a natural.
I mean, it's so much of his personality in this movie. Like his whole character is so Billy Crystal.
So let's mention the deli scene. This morning, coincidentally, you know how sometimes they'll release Super Bowl ads, because we're recording this on January 30th. So Super Bowl is going to be happening next week, and sometimes they'll release like Super Bowl ads early on YouTube or whatever. And this morning they released one for this mayo company, and they brought back Billy Crystal and Meg Ryan to do the Cat's Deli scene. And it's basically like, the mayo's so good and Meg Ryan's doing it. And I sent a link to her, like, what a coincidence. And the person who says the line of "I'll have what she's having" is Sydney Sweeney.
Yeah.
Which I think was a clever meta joke. And then you and I got into like a very strange argument that was partly for me to blame, about how like, I was telling Chris, I'm like, you underrate Sydney Sweeney. And I was like, dude, she's actually pretty good in Immaculate. All right, man. It's not just about her tits. All right.
Here's the thing though. I feel like you're playing it up like I took a big dump on Sydney Sweeney. All I said was like, I just didn't really care that she was at the end of the ad. I feel like she didn't, like, there was nothing, like, it kind of took, like, it felt like it diverted the attention away from Billy Crystal and Meg Ryan to Sydney Sweeney. Like, it became about her. And so I was like, I didn't really, like, all I was saying, I wasn't like fucking fuming or foaming at the mouth about it. Yeah. I was just a little like, that wasn't necessary.
You know what would have been an amazing punch up to that joke? Instead of Sydney Sweeney, what if they had Rob Reiner say it?
That would have been funny.
Because he's a well-known guy. So it's
yeah.
Okay. Anyways, so this scene, when it came out, it was obviously, you can read about how provocative it felt. And it was like, so like, whoa, they're talking about this. And you would think now, with all the stuff that we've seen in movies now, that this would kind of feel very like, generic and kind of just like muted. It's like, oh, they're talking about an orgasm and she's faking it. It wouldn't be effective.
Mm-hmm.
I watched this scene last night, and I have roommates. I turned it down.
I guess you didn't want them to think you were watching some.
It's still provocative. Like, it still feels like, wow, they're going for this scene. And what's amazing about it is that the entire movie, Harry's yapping and yapping and yapping about all the takes he has on dating, and he's
so confident that no woman's ever faked an orgasm to him.
And so many scenes, like I said earlier, is Meg Ryan being like, what? Huh? What are you talking about? And this is the scene where she gets to shut him up.
yeah, she has her like moment.
It's like the fucking, like, it's the attack against mansplaining. It's just like, she's just like, oh yeah, okay,
You guys think you know everything. You guys think you have all the power.
And she, like, Meg Ryan goes for it.
I know, man. I love the cutaways too of all the other actors just awkwardly staring too.
Yeah, the casting for the extras is so good. Like, they feel like people that would like be at that deli.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
it's like no music and it does slow cuts, like to everyone just being like, what's going on?
And the actors aren't like the extras aren't overacting their faces. They're just kind of blankly staring.
Totally.
Did I tell you I've been to that deli?
Oh, nice.
When I was young, I was probably like,
You went to Cat's Deli, yeah.
yeah.
And they have the sign where Harry met Sally.
Yeah, they have like,
Which is
some
not
memorabilia
technically true. They didn't meet there.
But yeah, I've been there. I hadn't seen When Harry Met Sally at the time. I was like probably like 10 or 11 years old.
I knew about this scene before I saw the movie. It's like so that scene is so iconic.
Didn't that movie or that scene also like have to be re-edited after the test screenings too? Did you hear about that?
Well, I love this part. I was going to bring it up.
Okay, cool. Go ahead.
So apparently during the test screenings, that scene got... The punchline to that scene is it cuts to this old lady who is Rob Reiner's mom.
Yeah, that part I knew.
And she says, I'll have what she's having, which is in the AFI list of some of the funniest lines. It still makes me laugh. It cuts to like 3 to 4 shots of people skiing, and it's not skiing, like skating and like just playing in the snow.
Yeah, it cuts to winter time.
And that's because in the test screening, after that joke of I'll have what she's having, it got such a big laugh that you couldn't hear the dialogue.
Yeah.
And so they were like, let's just cut to some exterior shots. And I'm like, I find that so fucking cool. Like, that's so awesome. Like, that scene was so good. But it's one of the great punchlines ever. It's such a good line. And apparently, like, on the day, Rob Reiner would just be like, there's 2 anecdotes that I love about this scene. Rob Reiner would tell his mom, he's like, Mom, you can't fuck up this line. This is like the crux of this scene. Like, you can't fuck. She's like, no, I got it. And I was like, no, Mom, you don't understand. But she delivers it so like seriously. She's like, I'll have what she's having.
She's like, I haven't had that in a while.
She's not delivering it like a joke, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's what makes it so perfect.
He's like, I think that's what I want. And then another anecdote as I love is apparently Meg Ryan was really shy.
I did hear about that too, yeah.
And in order to make her not feel that insecure, because she was doing that scene in a bunch of extras that were silent looking at her, right? So shooting that scene must have been really hard. And she wasn't really going for it. And Rob Reiner apparently was like, Meg, no. He sits down on the chair and he does it. And I remember Blank Check, to give them credit, were telling this story. And Griffin from Blank Check worded it. He was just like, to see this like fat, bald guy do up lovingly to Rob Reiner.
Yeah, of course.
I love him. But I'm like, to see this guy just do like just full on do a female orgasm in front of a bunch of extras. Everyone laughed and it made Meg Ryan so much more comfortable.
Yeah.
Which is, I think that is like a great story and a great lesson in directing.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I was going to get at too. Like, I think a good director is more than just telling people what to do. It's also showing that they can walk the walk. Like, I think people feel more at ease when people are reciprocating the energy they're asking of you.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's why Hot Ones is so popular. That's why the people they interview on Hot Ones is so, vulnerable. Is because Sean Evans is eating the wings with them. So it feels immediately like, hey, we're in this together.
Yeah, 100%. It's like when, I think like Tarantino, like you can see the behind the scenes of Pulp Fiction when you're seeing Uma Thurman and John Travolta do the dance, and you see the behind the scenes of Tarantino by the camera dancing and getting excited.
Exactly.
And it's just like, oh, this guy's so pumped for his own movie that like, this is a party. I want to do this.
Or like on Matilda, Danny DeVito got the whole set and crew to dance when they were filming her dancing. Matilda makes me emotional when I think about it. That's one of my favorite kids movies. Anyone that wants us to do Matilda in the future, please let us know, and I will happily do it. Any type of push of encouragement,
we'll do it.
We'll get to it, but we will get to it sooner if someone comments it.
If people say that they want it,
yeah.
We'll do it. Yeah. But I yapped and yapped about the scene. Now watching it. By the way, did you watch this movie with your girlfriend?
Yeah, I did.
Watching this scene now, what like?
I mean, it's still great. I mean, I've seen this movie like, I think this is only like my 3rd time watching it. We studied it in class and everything.
Yeah.
But I think both her and I are kind of desensitized to that scene, as funny as that word is for it.
No, because it's like so famous. And
yeah, so, it's not like I had an underreaction, like I didn't feel anything. I still think it's hilarious,
Yeah, I just think it's like a tour de force for Meg Ryan. Like, I just think like the fact that she went for it in that scene, and it's also for her character. It's such like a taking the power scene.
Oh yeah, and Billy Crystal's reaction was so good too that he didn't overact it either. He's just staring blankly like, all right, bet that was good.
Yeah, and what I love is like the way she like kind of defiantly like continues to eat her sandwich. It's like the great like physical acting. I can we talk about Meg Ryan?
Yeah.
Okay. Every time I watch this movie, I fall in love with her again. She is like such a crush in this movie.
Which era in the movie was your favorite for Meg Ryan? Was it the opening?
I know immediately.
What?
I know a specific look that I really fell in love with. It's her in the library when she sees Billy Crystal again for the first time in like 5-10 years. And she's like the red turtleneck, glasses, this blonde hair. And I'm just like, if I saw her in a library, I'd be too nervous to go up to her. Like, I'd be like, I would lose. But then also she seems like, again, it's the magic of Meg Ryan. She's beautiful, but then she also seems like someone that would be so approachable,
super
and easy
down to
talk
earth.
to.
Yeah.
And she has just that like David, I'm referencing Blank Check a lot because they talked about Nora Ephron a lot. David talked about Meg Ryan in The Perfect Way from Blank Check. He said that Meg Ryan is the best like at doing the flibberty gibbet, like that kind of acting, which is just like, so like, I don't know, it's kind of like this, you know?
And it's very comedic, but it's just not like obviously comedic.
There's not that, I don't know anyone else who's been able to replicate that quality that she has. It's so specific.
Yeah, well, I consider her, kind of among the ranks of like certain actors that have a specific style to their acting that people can do impressions of. Like, when you think of like, this is an extreme difference, but like Denzel Washington. Yeah. He has an acting style that's very specific to him.
It's a physicality, right?
Yeah,
it's not just the voice; it's the specific. Like, when Denzel sits in a chair, no one else sits in a chair like Denzel.
Exactly, and I think Meg Ryan has a similar kind of feel.
One of my favorite scenes, performance-wise, for her, is when she's catching Harry up to what happened with her ex early on in the movie, and she has that whole monologue about like, yeah, we didn't want kids because we always thought like, oh, we could have sex on the kitchen floor whenever we wanted and we could travel to Rome at a moment's notice. And she tells the stories of seeing kids and starts crying and whatever, right? And she tells her ex, she was like, but the thing is, we never fly to Rome on a moment's notice. And Billy Crystal's like, I think I wrote it down. He was just like, and the kitchen floor? And Sally says, not once. It's this very cold, hard Mexican ceramic tile. And it kind of puts perspective into life of just like, sometimes we always like hold off a little bit because of certain things that maybe we'll do in the future, but it's like living in the present. It's a gentle reminder to live in the present. Yeah.
And it's also like, when you're in a relationship with someone, you still want to feel like you're moving forward in some sort of way. Like, okay, yeah, like you said, if she and her, I forget, what's the name of the ex? I forget his name.
I didn't write
Joe or something like that. I don't know.
Who knows?
The ex-boyfriend, though. If they didn't want to take their lives in a family direction, or like they didn't want to get married and have kids and all that stuff, like you said, you do want to move forward and take your relationship to another place. Otherwise, you kind of end up stagnating. You took your relationship as far as it can really get,
Totally. And yeah, and it's just like, it's just such a like a simple close up on her. And again, she delivers it like she's throwing it away. It does remind me of like Julie Delpy and Ethan Hawke in Before Sunrise, the way they just like throw away dialogue.
Yeah. That might be really, really fucking good, but it just feels so effortless.
Yeah, man. You can't, the way Nora Ephron writes this shit, not everyone can do. It's so hard. All right, so let's talk about the ending, and then we'll get to our prompt of asking our audience how this movie changed them.
It's a lovely ending.
It's just a lovely ending. What else to say about it? What I love about it, they have sex, and it's the night of where you see his immediate reaction of being like, what was that?
yeah. Immediately he just feels weird about it,
The phone call scene's amazing. Apparently they built sets where they all did that at one set.
That scene is crazy. That's another, like, to me, that's like among the ranks of like His Girl Friday or like those other really tightly written physical comedies.
It took them over like 16 takes to get it right because they filmed it all in one set next to each other. And apparently like they would have to get the timing so right, but one person would fuck up the line they have to return.
And just fucking crazy how they pulled that off.
Anyways, amazing. Yeah, his Girl Friday is a good comp with that. And yeah, and it's the classic scene in all rom-coms that we've seen since this movie of them separate, thinking about each other, really missing each other. And what's really important about this is we get to that final like moment where he shows up. And we've seen this scene now replicated throughout decades of rom-com since this movie. right? Anyone but you did it. He comes down in the helicopter and
Yeah, the grand gesture at the end of the movie.
right, but there's nothing like this because this scene kind of just is I love every annoying thing about you. He mentions the food order. He mentions the way she like her
nose crinkles or the crinkle above her nose.
the line that is just that is just fucking pulverizing and is so true to this day. And I want to know what you think about it.
Yeah.
I love that you are the last person I want to talk to before I go to sleep at night, and it's not because I'm lonely, and it's not because it's New Year's Eve. I came here tonight because when you realize you want to spend the rest of your life with somebody, you want the rest of your life to start as soon as possible.
Yeah, that's the big line.
So I want to ask you, with your current girlfriend that you have, was there a moment where you're like, or was it more gradual? But was there like that moment where you're like, I want to spend all my time with you?
Yeah. I don't know if there's like a specific aha moment, but there was a point where I came to terms with that feeling, because not that I was against it at all by any means, but it was one of those things where
you just came out of a big relationship. You were like in a weird space. Yeah, I get it.
And so, yeah, I do think there's truth in the line, like when you find the person you want to spend the rest of your life with, you want the rest of your life to start as soon as possible. There's that feeling of like, oh, I see my future kind of thing now, and I see where I want to take it, and I want this person along for the ride. Yeah. And it's a very special feeling, And so it's interesting, though, because like I was unsure if I agreed with it when I first heard it. I was like, is that a thing? Is that overly fluffy romantic dialogue? But I was like, no, fuck it. That's true.
Yeah. I mean, it is. I mean, and whether that person's going to stick with you for the rest of your life, you just know at that moment, you're like, I want this to start right now. Like,
yeah. And there are things that, of course, like any long-term relationship, there are things that drive me fucking nuts about my partner. Of course, the same vice versa. There's things that I do, I'm sure, that drive her nuts.
Yeah.
But like at the same time, though, I'm like, oh, but I would miss that if that was gone. I would like,
Well, that's what the wagon wheel table is all about. He's just like, this is a good table. And Carrie Fisher's like, I don't fucking know. Like,
and then you see him taking it out. And he's like, not a word.
By the way, want to shout out both Carrie Fisher and Bruno Kirby as Marie and Jess.
Oh, they're so good together.
I mean, that scene where she quotes his article and he's like, I wrote that. For a writer, that has to be the sexiest thing ever.
Oh, yeah. Immediately.
I know. Also, love Carrie Fisher. I think I texted you. I was like, Carrie Fisher in this movie could fuck up my entire life. She is so hot in this movie.
What's funny? I feel weird saying this. Carrie Fisher never did anything for me.
No way.
I'm sorry. I know.
What?
She feels like my aunt or something like that. And I love her. I think she's amazing. But I just don't have that attraction. Even in Star Wars or anything like that, I never had that for her.
Even Slave Leia?
I mean, when I was like 5.
Yeah. I also texted you, and I'm glad you got it, where I was just like, didn't know Eddie Burback was in this movie. Because when I saw Bruno Kirby, I just thought of Eddie Burback.
I know, it took me a second too.
Okay, so we asked you guys how this movie changed you, and you emailed us at moviesthatchangedus@gmail.com. We got an email. Chris, do you want to read it?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we got one email. This one's from Kathleen Jennings. So thank you, Kathleen, for sending us an email. We really appreciate it. And it says, hey, Chris and Altaf, love you guys. We love you too. Sorry I don't get to catch your podcast too often. I'm in a condensed college program and sometimes barely have time to sleep. Never be sorry for that. Let me jump in and say that.
We got, we're not as smart as you. That's what I was just, I don't know. Keep reading.
Yeah, you're going to college. Hell yeah, do your thing. And also on top of that, our episodes are not going anywhere. But, okay, so then it says, but the one quote from When Harry Met Sally is when you realize you want to spend the rest of your life with somebody, you want the rest of your life to start as soon as possible, was a complete fit for me and my fiance. In fact, we put it on our wedding program.
Aww.
I had met my future husband online and we immediately clicked. People told me it was too fast, but we were both in our 30s and we knew what hadn't worked romantically. So when we were in a relationship that wasn't like that, we knew this was it. We met in February, got engaged in November, and married in April. 2025 will be 13 years.
Oh my God.
I know, isn't it?
Oh my God.
No marriage is easy and no human is perfect. And I don't think time is what determines wisdom. If both people are solid on foundational issues and they both are determined to be committed, that is what makes a marriage successful.
Oh, wow.
Kathleen, congratulations on 13 years. That's amazing.
Kathleen, amazing. Also, so I think I want to say, because we didn't mention any of the old couples that
Oh yeah, the through lines of the old couples throughout.
This is a great jumping off point for that. Yeah. I love, as you guys could probably hear from my excitement when she says, this is the hopeless romantic in me. I fucking love hearing how we met and how we got married stories. And I get so excited because it's like I'm fucking witnessing a When Harry Met Sally story
happening.
And the reason I like this movie so much is that movie leans into that. Like every time it cuts to another couple, it's another like, it's one of those stories. Yeah. You know what I mean? I want to ask you to end off this. Who's your favorite couple?
Oh, the one I definitely got the most laughter out of was the one that like dated like 100 people who divorced. I forgot he divorced the first wife, and then and he couldn't remember the names of like the woman he was with when he saw her,
and he's like,
ditched her.
But then I saw her across the room. I went to her. What'd I say to you? And she says like, you said, what are you doing after? And it's like not romantic.
I love that one. And then also the couple that were like competing to say the story.
That's my favorite.
The Laird one. I forget what the story
He has this like goofy mustache, and she's just like, they're both like racing towards it. And then he's like, and then I went down in the elevator, went 9 floors to see her. And then she just looked at him like 9 floors.
Hell yeah.
and you could tell they've told this story so often, but they both are so charmed by it still. So they're like racing towards it.
Yeah.
The final scene of the movie is Harry and Sally telling their story.
Yeah, it's a cool way to wrap it up for sure.
But then they tell this like non sequitur about something that was in the wedding, about the fountain that was in the wedding, and it ends with them still kind of yapping.
Yeah.
It doesn't end on the kiss. It ends with them kind of chatting, which is, to your point, that's all we want. We just want someone that we can talk about bullshit with.
Exactly. Someone that you can just, like I've been saying, is just someone I can stand to be around and not really do much with, but I can handle your company.
Yeah. Anyways, what a pleasure to talk about this movie with you. Such a fun episode.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for supporting us. Thank you so much to our patrons for supporting us. Thank you so much for listening. Hope you're enjoying Love Month. It's February.
Yeah.
Stay nice, dude.